Mr. Mayor, it is 5:30 p.m. and the live stream has commenced. You may begin your meeting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good afternoon, Council, residents, members of SLT, and members of the viewing public. We are holding this meeting under the Planning Act on Wednesday, April the 9th. First order of business is to have the land recognition statement, and tonight, Councilor Olson will have the honor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The town of Pelham is situated on treaty land, steeped in the rich history of the First Nations such as the Hattawandurunk, Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe people, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island live and work in Niagara. The town of Pelham stands in solidarity with all Indigenous peoples, past and present, acknowledging that our high standard of living is a result of the resources and lasting friendship of the Indigenous peoples.
Thank you, Councilor Olson. I now turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We will begin with some opening remarks. Public meeting under the Planning Act, Wednesday, April 9th, 2025, 5:30 p.m. The town of Pelham is holding hybrid public meetings. A hybrid meeting involves a mixture of in-person and remote attendance participation. Please note, no decisions have been made prior to this public meeting. The Planning Department will be providing a presentation regarding the Town of Pelham official plan, the new Town of Pelham official plan. Decorum. Public meetings under the Planning Act are formal meetings requiring decorum, meaning all comments are to be made through the chair. If you have pre-registered to speak virtually or are participating in person, you will be given an opportunity to address the committee at the public portion of the meeting. If someone ahead of you has made the same comments that you wish to make, there is no need to repeat the same comments. Please keep all comments concise. If you are live streaming and wish to submit a comment live, please email clerks@pelham.ca. Inappropriate comments and behavior such as clapping will not be tolerated. Please note, if decorum is lost, the meeting may be recessed and persons will be asked to leave. If you wish to receive a copy of the notice of decision, please contact the planner responsible for this new official plan in writing as soon as possible. Contact information is to follow the presentation. Contact information can also be found at the Town of Pelham's website. Mr. Mayor, this brings us to item 3, adoption of the agenda. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrand that the agenda be amended to add item 5.2.1. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Council, any, after viewing the agenda, any changes? Not seeing any. Call the vote. All those in favor? I see none opposed. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrand that the agenda for the April 9th, 2025 public meeting under the Planning Act, special meeting of Committee of the Whole be adopted as amended. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions on the amended agenda? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote on that amended agenda. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, that now brings us to item number 4, being disclosure of pecuniary interest.
Thank you. After viewing the agenda and the amendment, does any council have a pecuniary interest and general nature thereof to declare? And I see none, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That now brings us to item number 5. I will now read the opening statement into the record. Town of Pelham, new Town of Pelham official plan. The Planning Act requires under Section 26 that council must hold at least one public meeting for the purpose of informing the public in respect of the new official plan. The public meeting has been called to satisfy this requirement. Notice of this statutory public meeting was published on March 20th, 2025 on the town's website and on the official plan project page at engagingpelham.ca. Additionally, a copy of the notice was emailed out to all interested stakeholders who had provided contact information either via the public information sessions, online through the Engaging Pelham project page, or through direct contact with planning staff. If you wish to receive a copy of the official plan or presentation, please contact the Planning Department as soon as possible. Contact information is available on the town's website and will also be displayed on the last slide of the staff presentation to follow shortly. If a person or public body would otherwise be able to appeal the decision of the town of Pelham to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the town of Pelham before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. In closing, we stress that no decisions have been made on the proposed amendments at this point, and therefore any comments received will be considered by council. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have Ms. Lindsay Richardson, the town's policy planner, here with us this evening to represent the file.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lindsay, you have the floor. Before you begin your presentation, I did have a developer who will remain anonymous. He didn't want his name used. He phoned myself at around noon today, and he is not making a presentation here today, but he did want to just extend the thought that after that he's had a lot of consultations with our planning department, our director of planning, Pam Dusling, and our Lindsay, the policy planner, and he had nothing but good things to say about the number of times that you sat down with him, listened to his thoughts and ideas, and incorporated some, and in some he understood why they weren't incorporated. So he just wanted to make sure I extended that before the meeting began, that he was very happy and pleased with how this whole process has unfolded. Lindsay, to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that. We always like to have happy customers. Good evening to yourself, to members of council, my fellow colleagues, and to members of the public, and those of you viewing online. My name is Lindsay Richardson. I am the policy planner with the town of Pelham, and this is my baby. So I'm just going to start with a little bit of background on sort of how we got to this place. The current official plan that we have that is currently active was adopted back in 2012 and then later approved by the municipal board in 2014. Since that time, there's been 19 amendments to that plan, some impacting the entire town, some impacting just site-specific properties. There's also been some really major legislative changes that have come down from the province. The Planning Act was updated, and we now have a new provincial planning statement. And a big shift with that is that the approval authority has moved now from what was originally the region of Niagara to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. So that sort of changed how we're approaching this plan. So basically what that means is as of March 31st, 2025, the Niagara region no longer plays an approval role in our official plan. And with all of that being said, this also means that their recently adopted official plan has become our second official plan. So we currently now have two official plans in play, the region's plan and our existing 2012 plan. That is in place until we get this taken care of and consolidated. So what we've done with this plan is we have taken all the good things from the regional plan and all the good things from our plan and combined them into one complete plan. So the update process that we've been going through has been happening in phases. Phase one, if you'll remember, was sort of 2022, 2023, and we were working with WSP to do a conformity review exercise. That wrapped up, I believe, September of 2023, and it really helped identify where our policies needed to be updated to align with all of the new legislation. Phase two involved basically drafting the new plan, and that was completed in October of 2024. And then following the release of this draft, we held a number of open houses, met with developers and stakeholders, and just gathered feedback from the public on that initial draft. Made a whole whack of changes, and now you have sort of a final draft before you tonight. So we're finally kind of at the end of the project, with tonight's meeting being the start of the official planning process under the Planning Act. And after tonight's statutory public meeting, we will have a look at all of the comments that we've received from tonight and just from any additional submissions that we've had from folks, make any final changes or amendments to the plan that you kind of are looking at tonight, and then present that final official plan to council May 7th. And so I guess just backing up a little bit, for those of you that sort of maybe don't know what an official plan is, basically it's a long-term planning blueprint that guides how lands within the municipality can be used and developed over the next 20 to 30 years. It sets out the policies, the direct growth, physical change, and design of the community, and the province of Ontario directs that municipalities must revise their official plans every 10 years after it's created and then update it every 5 years after the update is completed. So basically, new and revised official plans ensure that land development aligns with the current provincial legislation, our strategic plan, and other policies and community priorities. I also want to add that the official plan sets out the overarching policy direction and general permitted uses, goals, and objectives, while the town's zoning bylaw, which people always mix up, actually provides for land use regulations such as setbacks, parking requirements, lot area requirements, and things like that. So just want to separate those two. So after a lengthy process, the town is kind of in the final stages of their new official plan project. And this presentation and the information report that's attached to your agenda have been prepared aimed to provide council and the public with information regarding the new official plan.
Mayor, she's not sharing the
So,
presentation.
as I've noted, the new official plan that you have before you this evening has been prepared in accordance.
Hey, Lindsay,
Your
it's-
presentation.
Oh
It's
no,
not on.
where'd it go?
Can we help?
Yeah, let's see, it disappeared. Nope. Share.
it's in cyberspace somewhere.
Yeah, it was there now, okay. Let's see if this works.
Okay.
Okay, we back,
got it now.
kind of maybe. Oh, there we go, okay. I am the worst person with technology, so.
No, you're not.
you,
I'm the
and-
worst. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so, next slide, all right. So as I mentioned, this new plan that you have before you this evening has been prepared in accordance with the provincial and regional policies that we have. It's also been prepared with a lot of the policy documents that the town has adopted in the last sort of 5 to 10 years, including the Parks and Rec Master Plan, the Culture Plan, your strategic plan. Oh, there's a whole whack of them. So we've tried to kind of incorporate as much as we can from all of the other pieces of documentation that we have and include them in this plan. So one of the big things is that Pelham by 2051 is projected to be a community of approximately 29,000 people and 7,100 jobs. We have to plan for that. And so that's why you have this plan before you. And the density target that we have in the new plan that you're seeing still remains at that sort of 50 jobs and people per hectare in designated sort of urban areas. So that's not changing from the current plan. We're also looking at an intensification target of approximately 25% of new growth through intensification, again, mostly in the urban area. Traditionally, the town has always met or exceeded these targets. And I think with the new development that's happening and the additional lands, the urban lands that have been sort of brought online through the region's official plan, we will definitely continue to be able to meet these targets. So I think that's something really important to keep in mind. Uh-oh. Maybe it just doesn't like moving forward. Oh, there we go. Okay. So there were 4 main focus areas for the plan, and a 5th that was really important to us in terms of collaboration and community input. So the 4 kind of main key pieces that we focused on with this plan were protecting the natural environment and adapting to climate change, enhancing our downtown areas, supporting the agricultural community, and encouraging growth through new development and intensification. So when we released our plan in October, we sort of took the 6 months from then until now to really try to reach out to the community in the best way we knew how. We sent out pamphlets to all the households in the town. We hosted several information sessions. We engaged with the development community. We engaged with stakeholders. We went to committee-appointed meetings. And so we've really tried to engage with as many people as we can, realizing we can't reach everybody, but we can certainly try to get people excited about policy, and that's sometimes a really hard thing to do. So, All right, so now we'll get into sort of the meat of the plan, and there's a lot. So it's 600 and something pages to get through, so I appreciate anyone that read through it. There's a lot, and I understand that. So I will try to summarize some of the key points for you guys. So overall, the focus of the new plan was really to create a more flexible and user-friendly document. This official plan is a lot less prescriptive than the previous plan, and I think it incorporates policies that align with the new focus of the provincial government, but also of this council through your strategic planning process. Essentially, we've sort of created a vision for the town, and you can read it there, but I think ideally what we want to do is plan for and support development, increase the housing supply, but also ensure that we're fostering long-term viability for our rural areas. We're a very unique municipality in the fact that we have a lot of agricultural lands and a lot of but also urban lands as well. And so we're trying to get a balance between those two, have our growth, but also have our protection. Okay, so the first sort of key focus point was protecting the natural environment. And as I sort of alluded to, nearly 50% of the town's lands that are outside the settlement boundary or the urban boundary are protected by the Greenbelt Plan and the Niagara Escarpment Plan. So there's a lot of land in Fonthill that has additional provincial layers on top of what we're already doing that sort of add to that protection of green space. And this official plan promotes a diverse and well-connected natural system, supporting biodiversity, clean water, and healthy ecosystems. We've updated our natural heritage mapping using a more feature-based approach to help landowners better understand the significance of the natural features on their properties. Setbacks and buffers are very clearly delineated, but there's also some flexibility to move those boundaries if they don't make sense through the appropriate environmental studies. So again, we've tried to keep that balance, understanding that we want to protect, but if it doesn't make sense, let's make some changes. So we've sort of built that into the plan. We also have really kind of exciting new policies that encourage tree canopy protection, especially in the settlement area, by promoting tree retention and replanting where possible. Additionally, we've kind of created a different approach, I think, to our park planning, and we've worked very closely with our friends at the community center and the rec department. We've taken their recreation, culture, and parks master plan and sort of taken some of the key points and the key indicators from that and tried to incorporate them in this plan where we could. So that plan actually identified a shortfall of parkland. The new official plan addresses this in a parkland first approach, where we're really prioritizing land over cash in lieu of parkland dedication for development. Understanding that can't always happen, but we'd much prefer to actually get physical parkland at this point than the cash in lieu. And so we're working also towards a connected system of parks and trails that supports recreation, health, and interaction with nature. Again, this aligns with both the rec master plan, active transportation plan, and just kind of creates a better, healthy, sustainable community. The new official plan also addresses climate change and adaptation, something that was not addressed in the previous plan, and it's sort of become a hot button issue in the last couple of years. So like many communities, Pelham is already feeling the effects of climate change, from more frequent extreme weather events to the spread of invasive species. And land use planning is one of the tools that we have to respond to this. It's not the only one, certainly, but we can do something through our policy framework to help to reduce the impacts of climate change. So this official plan includes policies that reduce environmental and economic risks, improves air and water quality, and expands natural and open spaces. There's also a lot of policy that supports the town's corporate climate adaptation plan, and it kind of embeds some resilience strategies into everyday municipal decisions and operations. So we're hopeful that this will maybe be the starting point to create some good climate adaptation work. Okay, the second sort of piece that we were looking at, or that we've touched on with this new plan, is enhancing our downtown areas. And that includes the Fonthill and Fenwick downtowns, which are much more than retail areas. They're vibrant social and cultural hubs for the community. think it's important to recognize that. And this official plan supports commercial development that fits the character of these areas, whether that be through renovation and reuse of existing buildings or through the creation of new mixed-use spaces that are compatible with the surrounding architecture and neighborhoods. We're supporting some downtown improvement initiatives, streetscape upgrades, and gateway enhancements, making our downtowns more welcoming and walkable. At the same time, the policies do help manage growth carefully, trying to avoid strip-style development and ensuring redevelopment that's sensitive to nearby neighborhoods with adequate parking and minimal disruptions. And the third piece that we're looking at is how we can support our agricultural community. As I noted, the agricultural community here is very large and very strong. And so we felt it was very important to make sure that we have policies in place that allowed for the most flexibility so that these folks could succeed. It's an essential part of our identity and our economy. And so the policies and the importance of the policies were to preserve the diversification, integrity, and function of the agricultural areas with a focus on sort of that long-term sustainability, recognizing that farming today doesn't look like farming looked 50 years ago and probably it won't look this way in 10 years. Some of our discussions with our agricultural advisory committee, the amount of technology and advancements that are happening in farming are mind-blowing. And so, we need to be able to focus on that and also just, again, allow that flexibility so that we're not so stuck on sort of traditional techniques for things. With that being said, we do try to strike a balance between allowing farms to efficiently operate, but also making sure that we're still protecting our natural heritage features. A lot of those features are located in the rural and the agricultural areas. So again, it's finding that balance. Okay, and the final piece, and this is the important piece because we do have to still grow according to the province. And so this, again, in this official plan, we're planning for a diverse range of housing options from low to high density with a clear focus on affordability for future and current residents. We're trying to protect and enhance our existing neighborhoods while promoting intensification where appropriate, especially in areas that already support sort of the minimal public transit that we have available to us and those mixed-use areas. New developments are encouraged to support active transportation, such as walking and cycling, along with sort of those transit-friendly designs, with the knowledge and understanding that we might not have transit service now, but in 20 years, maybe we will, or hopefully we will. The plan also does introduce some urban design guidelines, which are new for us as well. And this is just so that we can ensure new development is functional, well-designed, and looks good. It's important, I think, that we create these spaces for people and we create these complete communities so that, again, it's kind of that living in place thing where you grow up here, like I did, and you live your life, you raise your family, but then there's still space for you as you enter your later years. I think that's something that this plan really tries to promote, that aging in place, those aging in place policies. Okay, so next steps for this. This is also my contact information if anyone needs me. But essentially what's going to happen from this point is we are going to listen to what is said tonight, listen to what council feedback is. We're going to review all of that, and then we are going to make some final refinements to the plan and hopefully bring a sort of final draft to you guys on May 7th. Sorry, I'm a hand talker. Once it's approved by council, it will then go off to the province for their approval. Unfortunately, maybe fortunately, we are probably going to be the first municipality in the region to have their plan approved and to the province. Because of that, I have no idea what the time frame looks like. But if we're first at the gate, maybe they'll get to us quickly and just say we've done a really great job and approve it. So unfortunately, don't really have a timeline for that. We are meeting with the province at the end of this month. I may have a better idea at the recommendation meeting as to what their timeframes look like. And then once this is all approved and everything is done and finalized, the next step will be to review our zoning bylaw and make any necessary changes to that to ensure that it is now in keeping with the new official plan that we have in place. So again, no time frame for that, but we know it's coming. We've got some stuff in the works. And so as soon as we sort of get that approval, we will be able to start that process for the town. So that's it for me. Thank you for your time and your attention. I appreciate it. Again, I appreciate anyone that read through the plan, even parts of it. And I look forward to hearing the comments from council and the members of the public. So thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay, for the presentation. Obviously, as you alluded to, the big difference now is going to the province as opposed to the region is completely out of the approval process. So a new avenue to travel down for sure. Excellent. To the clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're going to head into the public input portion, and I can confirm that we have 8 pre-registered speakers for tonight's public meeting. So I will call the speakers in the order that they have registered, and then I will call upon any members of the public who are in the gallery and wish to speak once our final pre-registered speaker has concluded. So I'd like to first call Mr. Anthony Kolesny. You just make your way to the podium, sir, and ensure that the microphone is on with the green button, the green light there.
Thank you for joining us this evening, Anthony, and you have the floor.
Button?
Yep,
Okay.
there you go.
Thank you. I didn't realize I was so quick out of the gate. I've been researching local history in this area since about 2011 with the aid of Joan Olick and Erica Fernie. And we come back right from settlement, first settlers coming over, and how they obtained land, made a petition, and what the king, King George III at the time, gave and granted them. So, and a lot of people over the years come back and say, well, this is old stuff and doesn't mean anything, and these are bygone days and actions. But through our research, we found that there are current statutes still protecting certain aspects that were given and granted by the king. And I believe Sarah Leach gave you a copy of the legislation.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I asked if I had to bring anything else. They said, no, you'd have it. So apparently you are aware of it. But what I wanted to do was expand a little bit on the statutes. And the issue that I see right now, there was a question about trees and ownership and what we can and can't do with trees. So the current laws under the Ontario Public Lands Act, RSO 1990, property vested in the patent deed. Now, when a settler made a petition for land, they were granted land, and after about 3 years, they had settlement duty, and the land, that grant was patented, which a patent is no different than any item. The Crown is protecting the right to that item that's on the patent, and in this case, it's land. So a reservation. So the definition of a reservation is an interest. So basically, if you're telling someone right now that you can or cannot cut down a tree, that's an interest, okay? It's a reservation. So it says here on the Public Lands Act, RSO 1990, a reservation of all timber and trees of any class or kind of tree contained in letters patent dated on or before the first day of April 1869 and granting public lands disposed of under this or any other act is void. So what they're saying here is that if the settler had his grant patented prior to April 1st, 1869, in its entirety, all trees, the timber, the profit from the trees belongs to the person. And that was expressed on the patent, and I didn't bring one with me, nor did I send a copy. But the wording on it is heirs and assigns forever. So going forward, okay? And granting public lands disposed of under this act or any other act means should the land escheat, you have no heirs, and it goes back to the Crown, or for some reason the Crown through compulsory purchase takes it back, and at a later date decides that they no longer want the land, they may not use the Public Lands Act, they may use another act, but the interest, the reservation for the trees, seeing that it was granted prior to April 1st, 1869, still remains. So a lot of people now say, well, you know, the patent's old. You know, this is a document 200 years old. Does it have any relevance? And the Ontario Evidence Act, Section 24, RSO 1990, letters patent under the Great Seal of the United Kingdom or any other of His Majesty's dominions may be provided for by a production or exemplification or an enrollment thereof. What they're saying here is that we do not need to see a certified copy, many times on the back of a deed, or even a loose paper that went with the conveyance would describe the rights given and granted on the patent. So it doesn't have to be certified, and it goes on to say, such letters patent were issued and such exemplification has the like force and effect for all letters patent exemplified or enrolled, as well as against His Majesty and against all other persons whomsoever. That the only entity not mentioned here is God. So what they're saying is whatever's on that document has to be respected. And even His Majesty, if he decides that he wants it back, or someone acting under the Crown, they do not have the authority to take whatever they want back that was granted at that time. So getting into the next current statute, the Legislative Act, Section 71, the Crown is not bound exemption, and no act or regulation binds the Crown or affects His Majesty's rights or prerogative unless it expressly states the intention to do so. What they're saying here is that the Crown prerogative was to grant the land, and now that right cannot be violated unless the legislation expressly says the grant or the patent is no longer valid. If it doesn't say that, then it doesn't stand. King George had many successors, but under British law and what has come forward, a change of reigning sovereign does not affect anything done or begun under the previous reigning sovereign, and in all matters continue as if no succession had occurred. So basically, that patent as it sits as if King Charles has issued it currently. The Ontario Property and Civil Rights Act has never been amended since its inception, which was the 15th day of October of 1792. And it says, in all matters of controversy relative to property and civil rights, resort shall had to be with the laws of England as they stood on the 15th day of October 1792, as the rule of decision for the same, and all matters relative to testimony and legal proof in the investigation of fact, and the forms thereof in the courts of Ontario shall be regulated by the rules of evidence established in England as they existed on that day, except so far as such laws and rules have since been repealed, altered, varied, modified, or affected by any act of the Imperial Parliament still having the force of law in Ontario, or by the act of the late province of Upper Canada, province of Canada, and the force of law in Ontario. So when we look at this, we are into controversy. Well, now we have to go back to the laws of England of 1792. Sadly, the Planning Act that you're working on did not exist at that time. So that controversy has to be set aside. Many people feel that these old laws are not protected. Now, the patents and the Crown grants were issued by the Imperial Parliament of Great Britain under His Majesty's direction. So they are imperial documents, imperial law. In Section 129 of the British North American Act, which is our Constitution, issued in 1867, July the 1st, except as otherwise provided by this Act, all laws in force in Canada, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick at the Union, and all courts of the civil and criminal jurisdiction, and all legal commissions, powers, and authorities, and officers, judicial, administrative, ministerial, existing thereof at the Union shall continue in Ontario, Quebec, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. Those are the four provinces that started Canada as being Canada. As the Union had not been made, subject nevertheless, and here's the exception, except with respect to such that were enacted or existed under the Acts of Parliament of Great Britain, or the Parliament of the United Kingdom of Britain and Ireland. So anything that was made by the Imperial Parliament cannot be repealed, abolished, altered by the Parliament of Canada, the legislature of the respective province, according to the authority of the Parliament of that legislature under this act. So letters patent, we see that the statutes protect them. We see that our Constitution protects them. A couple little definitions here. Many times people say, you take that for granted, but how many people know what it means? What it means is to be given and granted without question. So an imperial grant, that patent is not to be questioned. It's above the Parliament and the Senate, the Governor General of Canada. Over the years, when I was looking at land use issues, one of the things that I found interesting was that everybody seems to grasp the concept of an easement. If we need a right-of-way through a piece of property, private property, we go to the landowner and we approach them and see what we can work out. And yet, when it comes to something like a tree, which is still an incident of that land, nobody wants to contact the property owner, but rather tell them that they can't cut their own tree down. And I asked council, why don't we treat easements the same? If Bell Canada wants to put an easement through someone's private property, why can't they approach council and say, give us that easement? And you'd look at me right now and you say, well, we can't do that. But yet, trees, which are an incident of the very same property, you want to control and prohibit somebody from trimming them, cutting them down, whatever, harvesting the timber. When council is sworn in, they swear into an oath of allegiance, stating that they will follow the law. And I'm not making any of this up. I've given you current statutes, and I ask that you follow the law. One of the issues, too, that faces council when you put out a tree bylaw is liability. You've now expressed a reservation and an interest. And many of the patents that came out back in the 1800s stated that the Crown wanted right to the white pine and sometimes the oak trees. In 1970, that reservation was released, and it was for this reason. And this comes from the Ontario Hansards, June 25th, 1970, page 4502, 4503, to the debate about tree reservations and the Public Lands Act are recorded in the Hansard, so stated. At that time, the parties expressed the note in tree reservations to be voided so that the Crown could avoid liability from any trees reserved to the Crown that fell and caused damage. So, you know, insurance companies being what they are these days, if they know that somebody else has got an interest in that, and maybe possibly a homeowner decided, well, I should cut that branch down, but I don't want to get a permit, and I don't want to get an arborist, and all this red tape to go through, and they put it off. And they put it off until finally something happens, rather than saying, no, it's my tree, it looks bad, me and my neighbor, we're gonna do an attempt at here, and we're gonna take responsibility for it. So I'm just bringing that forward because the province saw that there was a problem, and for that reason, they decided to no longer uphold that reservation. So I ask council, Mr. Mayor, your planning staff, please read the law. A lot of people aren't familiar with the law. The three of us have spent a great many years researching, going to the Ontario archives, countless nights, trying to understand exactly what was the intent, what is our heritage. All this was given to us by the Crown. This was given to the settlers. And for somebody to come up and say, well, no, you can't have that tree anymore, or we need a permit and it's going to cost you $1,000 because we want our arborist to do an assessment on it. You're actually violating the law. So I know it hasn't gotten to that yet, but I asked for that consideration. And that's all I've got to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So before you sit down, just for my own
Sure.
knowledge.
I'm approachable. If you,
Well, yeah, well, we'll have a question period later, but just before we
Yeah, yeah.
move on to the next speech. So this is the same land patent that the landowners are professing to, right? You know the Landowners Association of Ontario? This is the same land patent that they are,
correct.
Okay.
But it's also on your deed.
Yes.
And on your parcel register, they all make reference to it. So it's not like I'm pulling this out of
no,
the air.
no,
okay?
no, Governor, I've heard about these for quite a few years. Yep. Okay, thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Yep, to the clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, our next speaker is Mr. Graham Pett.
Graham, thank you for joining us tonight, and you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Town of Pelham councillors and staff. I appreciate the opportunity of speaking to you tonight. We'll make it pretty brief. First of all, I just wanted to extend my personal thanks to Dr. Dusling and Lindsay Richardson for their openness, candor, and receptiveness to engaging in a dialogue. It's been going on for, seems like forever, I'm sure, for Lindsay, but well over a year or so. We've had a lot of good discussions, a lot of good back and forth. They've been, I say, very responsive to responding to any particular suggestions, opinions, et cetera, et cetera. So we certainly appreciate that very much. I should say I appreciate that very much, since I'm speaking for myself tonight. Overall, I would just say that I'm very pleased with how the plan is looking. Of course, being a resident of Pelham for 45 years, my wife and I, having raised a family here, we've seen a lot of changes, and certainly it's led us to develop a great interest and efforts devoted towards environmental protection, and because this is a beautiful part of the world. That certainly is a raison d'etre of ours. In terms of a few comments I have, I would just apologize to Dr. Dusling and Lindsay for some of these, because upon probably the third reading of the plan, especially under Section 4 of the environmental section, protecting what we have, there's always something that seems, I guess, to come up, and a few things have come up. And the first thing really that finally, I guess, caught my attention well enough is the issue related to endangered and threatened species. We as a species have been pretty horrific in terms of the toll we've taken on other species that supposedly we're trying to coexist with here on the planet. And there are a number of areas where this is referenced in the plan. And there's a bit of variance in terms of just how threatened and endangered species seem to be treated. I'm going to make a few references to some of the coding on the plan. So Section 4.1.11.3 does state that does generally require a site assessment of the habitat that is present and to the impact upon species. So that's a good place to start in terms of obviously assessing the habitat, et cetera. But then we go on to Section 4.1.5.3, where again the mention is about endangered and threatened species, but we don't have the same criteria in terms of assessing that particular environment. Or that, and this pertains obviously to development kind of thing in terms of looking at, what are the particular issues for endangered and threatened species in that area. And I'm thinking especially these might be areas that fall outside the NES, our most protected areas. But it's possible that these areas could serve as linkages or corridors between various NESs, or Niagara Escarpment, or whatever areas that may be, as I said, a route for wildlife to be moving through. But we don't necessarily know that unless we do an assessment. And right now, it seems to me the wording on that gives an out, a big out for not really doing an assessment in those kinds of areas that may not be an NES. And I just think that's something that should be addressed. And similarly, section 4.2.1.7, I would just recommend in that area, again, where it pertains to endangered species, threatened species, that at least the assessment, the wording may be required. Could be inputted there as well. Because I realize, you know, we hire planners, they have expertise. We know in some cases, well, I don't know if we absolutely know, but maybe if it's a farmland been established for many, many years, it's probably maybe not too many endangered species there. So the call may be, okay, we don't really think it's required in that area. But I think basically if there's any doubt, then I think we really should be, wherever a mention of endangered and threatened species is, that we should be erring on the side of caution, given how many species we've lost just in these last number of decades alone, and we continue to lose them as well. So I would respectfully request a relook at that. Next, regarding woodland cover, 4.1.20, the general section, and 4.1.20.1 currently reads woodland cover should be maintained or enhanced in the town by 2051. It just seems to me that the use of the word or it's an either or. We maintain it or maybe we'll enhance it. I just feel that it would read better and have more effect if it's maintained and enhanced. So that would be my recommendation, maintained and enhanced versus maintained or enhanced. And under that same section, there are A to F in terms of policies related to the woodlands protection. I would just recommend an addition, G in this case. I would input in it. It basically would read something to the effect of the town will assess and evaluate all public lands to determine where a woodland could be established and dedicate the funds to establishing such. And a woodland is defined as 0.2 hectares or greater. So I just asking that the town take even more initiative here, that if we have lands that basically aren't treed at all or very sparsely, that we look at reestablishing a woodland on those lands. Under the urban forest section, this, in my opinion, is very good in terms of what the planners are recommending, and I wholeheartedly endorse it. Under section 4.122.1, same issue where it talks about wetlands. It's, again, maintained or enhanced. Again, I would recommend or request maintained and enhanced by the town by 2051. And finally, my comments are on a different tact than the environmental side. As Council, I'm sure, are well aware, you were here and I spoke to you back in May regarding a development on Canberra Road, the old estate there, a lot of pristine trees, et cetera, et cetera. And it ended up that we had a situation where it looks like 14 tenants are going to be, at some point, basically kicked to the curb once a developer decides to tear down that apartment building. Now, obviously, your plan, the new plan, the town's plan, does address that and piggybacks on the region's policies related to the ability to pass a bylaw that will govern, the town will govern whether a building can be demolished and or rent evictions when it concerns rental accommodations. And what I would suggest, because Lindsay's referenced it, the town plan, it may be some time before the province gives the okay for that plan. But with the hope that we could avoid a situation happening again that's occurring at Canberra for those unfortunate tenants, is that my reading of it is the current regional plan, which is an approved plan, does give municipalities the powers to strike a bylaw to govern demolition and or rent evictions when it comes to rental accommodations, and that the developer then has to replace those rental units at the same amount, or to they can increase them if they like as well. So finally, I would just ask if council would basically make that job number one going forward, so that we don't run into a situation again where renters are basically tossed to the curb by a developer wanting to put in a couple $1 million homes. Okay, I thank you very much for your time. Thanks.
Thank you, Graham, for your presentation. I turn to the clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Our next speaker is Mr. Mike Jones, who is attending via Zoom, so we'll just allow him a moment to connect there. Mr. Jones, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you.
Then, Mike, you have the floor.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor. I want to thank, first of all, I would like to say good evening and thank you very much for allowing me to speak on the proposed official plan. At this time, I'd like to introduce myself to people who don't know me. My name is Mike Jones. I'm the Vice Chair of the Environment and Climate Adaptation Advisory Committee for the town of Pelham. I'm speaking here tonight as President of Pelham Advocates for Trees and Habitat, a not-for-profit environmental organization based in Pelham. Over the past 5 years, we have worked on many issues with our town council and staff. First, I want to thank the community planning staff, Dr. Pam Dusling and Lindsay Richardson, for their diligent and ongoing work on the new proposed official plan, and Sharon LaRock, the manager of planning. They have created this official plan, which has dramatically improved and is more environmentally friendly than the past plan for the town of Pelham in 2014. PATH supports the initiatives and improvements in the plan. PATH has reviewed the plan in detail and has submitted changes before and after the latest proposed official plan. We are thankful for the planner's receptions to our suggestions. The plan required changes in areas where other speakers and I will address or have addressed tonight. Tonight I'm speaking only on 2 sections. I'm here to ask if you could change section 4.1.21.1. The urban forest will manage and protect the following objectives. A, to maintain and increase the town's current canopy cover from 32 to 40 by 2051. PATH believes that because the continuing damage from our climate change, the official plan should be more aggressive, which would help mitigate the damage by increasing the current tree canopy in the Pelham to 40% by 2025 instead of the goal of 2051. Planting more trees in Pelham is the easiest and the most effective way to lower the rising temperatures, which cause damage from climate change. This can be accomplished using the town of Lincoln's yearly plan to plant 1,000 trees. This is the time to start now. The other section I would like to talk on is section 6.3.4, low impact development design. PATH supports this section because of the following. A, it minimizes the negative impact of urbanization on the area's natural heritage feature. B, it emphasizes the use of using bioswabs, innovative storm practices, and at the source infiltration to adapt climate change and mitigate impacts of a severe storm events. C, it reduces the risk of overland flooding to minimize the risk of basement flooding. And D, it considers to implement a minimum building setback from all mapped floodplains area to account for more severe rainfall events. And E, the town encourages a rainfall harvesting program to provide a passive irrigation of public or private green space. And in closing, I am grateful for the town of Pelham for the work they have accomplished. PATH hopes the planners will review and implement other of our recent suggestions from us. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I'd like to say, follow the path. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike, for joining us tonight. And on behalf of council, I know it's always a pleasure hearing from PATH as the policies of the town are decided. Thank you for your time. To the clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Our next speaker is Mr. Mark Engel.
Mark, well, welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight, and you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. So thank you for the opportunity to let me speak this evening. So I want to start off by saying that the Planning Department has been very receptive and constructive in engaging with my previous comments on the draft official plan, which I think that echoes some of the feedback that Mayor Junkin shared from a developer. So I'm hearing lots of that this evening, so you must be doing something right over there. So I have some specific policy suggestions that I provided in writing to the planning folks, and I won't go into those suggestions here. I'm sure the planning department will consider them as part of their through their process. I do have two suggestions that I'll speak to briefly that are higher level. So the first one. So I'm a big fan of numbers. They tell you how big an important an issue is or isn't. So for example, from the Town of Pelham's quarterly report presented in January, I learned that the Meridian Center had 175,510 visitors in the fourth quarter and a total of 577,000 and change in 2024 in total, which is an awesome statistic. That's great. From the Town of Pelham's asset management plan from June 2022, I learned that the town has just over 7 lane kilometers of arterial road, 110 lane kilometers of collector roads, and a whole bunch of local roads. So if the council wanted to change the way it managed roads or the way that it charged Meridian Center visitors, the council would have the information to at least begin to understand what that impact would be. Wouldn't tell you everything, but it would give you a lot of insight out of the gate. Now, the official plan defines adjacent lands as areas next to various natural heritage features or environmental features, and the areas range from 50 meters, which is 164 feet, to 120 meters or 394 feet, depending on what the feature is. So permission for any proposed development or site alteration in these adjacent lands would depend on the result of, may or may not be approved, depending on the result of an environmental impact study. So the suggestion I have, my suggestion here, is that the town determine which properties would be affected by this definition of adjacent lands and explain how this works to the property owners. So is the number of properties affected 1,000? Is it 2,000? Is it 3,000? Maybe it's 200. And it seems to me that it would have a different impact. It would be a different, might be more, might be less important, depending on how many people are affected. And I think the property owners also should understand how the new OP would affect them directly. I think this issue is a bit of a, and this isn't quite the right word, but I couldn't come up with a better one. I think this issue is a bit of a time bomb. And I don't like the word, but I haven't got a better one than that. So I apologize. I don't mean it's sort of inflammatory, and I don't mean it that way. The point is simply that people don't understand what the issue is until they want to do something, and then they learn what the zoning and the plan and all of these things. Suddenly they find out very quickly, but they don't know until that point. So it's sort of a hidden thing that gets discovered by individual property owners, at various points in the future. And I would suggest a similar exercise for the properties covered by the environmental features themselves. So that's just an information thing. That's not a particular view on what the regulation should be. That's just I suggest that everybody understand what's going on, or what the materiality is, and that the property owners themselves are informed. So that's first suggestion. So this second suggestion is related to this thing called the Conservation Land Tax Incentive Program, the CAL-TIP. So this is a provincial program that started in 1998. And according to the website, I'm going to quote a bunch here, not that much, a little bit. According to the website, it recognizes, encourages, and supports the long-term private stewardship of Ontario's provincially important natural areas. Under the Conservation Land Tax Incentive Program, a portion of your property or portions of your property that have eligible natural heritage features may qualify for 100% property tax exemption. The area needs to be identified by the Ministry of one of the eligible land types, and this is not, so I'm just summarizing here. So the eligible types basically allow no development. They're kind of no-go zones, kind of like the EPs and the environmental protection zones in the current zoning bylaw. And they need to be, so it needs to be one of these eligible land types, and it needs to be a half an acre or a fifth of a hectare or larger in size. And then you also need to commit to protecting the designated portion of your property and allow ministry staff to inspect it if requested. So that's the sort of the end of the little blurb from their website. So I know about the program because we have some provincially significant wetland on our property, and we participate in this program. So the program encourages and rewards long-term private stewardship of natural heritage features where development is forbidden by the province. Now note that the town is a little bit more restrictive than the province, so the provincial program wouldn't cover all of the no-go areas in the town. My suggestion is that the town study what would be involved with putting a similar program in place for the natural heritage features where the town has forbidden development. And I think this would serve three purposes. First, it would align philosophically with the theory of municipal taxes, the idea that the land is taxed where it could be developed or used productively by the owner. So if a land can only be used as private conservation lands, then it shouldn't be taxed. And I think that was the discussion when the province decided that they were going to make these no-go or no development areas, that they said, okay, you can't develop on them, but we won't charge you taxes on them. So that was the provincial plan. So second, it would compensate landowners to a degree for the loss of use that an environmental designation causes. So currently it's free, at least it's free for the, when the town imposes a constraint, and arguably the town should share in the cost of those constraints which benefit a public good. So you've got, individual private land being regulated for the broader public good, but all of the cost, the impact is borne by the property owner and not shared throughout the town, which I think would be a second benefit. And then finally, it would encourage and reward long-term private stewardship of the natural heritage features within the town. So those are my two suggestions. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mark, and thank you for those suggestions. And with yours, the planning department is indeed taking notes, as they have been the whole evening. So great. Turn to the clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, our next speakers are Trina and George McSween.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for joining us this evening, and you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Junkin and members of council. Thank you for your time this evening. My name is Trina McSween, and this is my husband, George McSween, and I'm just going to provide a little bit of a background just to give a fulsome understanding for council as to why we're here today and basically our ask at the end. We are the property owners of 1012 Cream Street in Fenwick, which is approximately a 9-acre piece of land. The property is a treed lot with a 2,000 square foot pole barn and a large solar panel units that are in a separate location from the barn on the land. When we purchased the property in June of 2022, we did our due diligence to ensure that we could build a home while also respecting the environment. We contacted the NPCA in the town of Pelham to confirm our zoning, and we were told by a town Pelham official from the planning department that the lot was zoned agriculture and a house build would be permitted. During these initial conversations with the town, no mention of the ongoing zoning review was told to us and how the new zoning bylaw could potentially affect the future of our property. It's important to note that we are not residents of the Niagara region yet, and we were unaware of the new zoning bylaw discussion that was at the time taking place. It wasn't until after purchasing the property in the spring, it wasn't until after purchasing the property and in the spring of 2023 that we learned our agriculture zoning had been changed to a residential one with an EP1 significant woodland designation. This environmental designation now blanketed the majority of our land. On top of this, we learned shortly thereafter that our property taxes had increased dramatically, and we were now paying residential taxes for a property potentially deemed undevelopable. Over the past 2 years, we've engaged in ongoing conversations with the Town of Pelham, Region of Niagara, Ontario Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and the NPCA to find a way forward. However, we have been left frustrated with the conflicting information and direction on how to proceed. Fast forward to this week when we met with the town's planning and development team under the leadership of new director Dr. Pam Dusling, and our hope going into the meeting was for guidance on next steps now that the new provincial legislation has taken effect and the town's new draft official plan is currently being considered. The team was very patient hearing our concerns, and I echo the comments made here tonight. We feel very confident in the leadership under the planning committee, and we thank them for their guidance and their support. As mentioned, our property has been blanketed with a environmental designation on approximately 95% of our land because it is considered a significant woodland. As council would understand, this designation makes building quite difficult, if not impossible. However, our concern is that the mapping of our property does not represent the current state of the land, meaning that there are two large portions of the property that are open space, one in which a large 2,000 square foot pole barn sits, and the other at the front of the property where large solar panel units are stationed. Our hope is to rebuild the barn where the solar panels currently sit at the front of the property, and then build our home where the pole barn currently sits, which, just to be clear for council, that these are already two clear and disturbed areas. Our ask of council today is that consideration be given to ensure the new official plan accurately reflects the mapping of our property in its current state and reflects the provincial significant natural heritage features only. In the proposed official plan, the entire property in which we own will be designated as a natural environment system, which we object to. The proposed official plan goes beyond and recognizes other natural heritage features, which carries over from the regional's official plan and is far more restrictive than the provincial policy. We want to reassure council that we purchased this land with all intentions of preserving and respecting the environment. My husband comes from a farming family in Niagara-on-the-Lake, and we are excited to once again call Niagara Region home in the very near future. We would cherish the environment in which our property has to offer, and all we want to do is build our dream home and be contributing members of this community. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your presentation, and thank you for your for coming back to Niagara. Thank you. And again, I'm glad to see that our planning department was listened to your concerns. Thank you. To the clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, our next speaker is Stephen Bedford from Landex Developments, who I understand has a brief presentation for the committee this evening.
Good evening, Stephen. Thank you for joining us tonight, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, Mayor and Council, staff, and members of the public. So, see what magic can happen here. So I just press the, how do I move the slide forward? Oh, this one, okay. I'll go ahead. And then go back. And again. Whew. Thank you. So good evening. My name is Stephen Bedford, and I'm a professional land use planner. I'm the principal planner at Landex Developments, and I'm here this evening on behalf of the owners of 227 Highway 20 East. the first property on the north side of Highway 20 as you enter the town. The owner is here with us online, as well as our project manager watching the presentation this evening. We have been working with town staff and would like to present to you this evening an opportunity to take advantage of the exceptional locational characteristics of this property. We have, prior to this meeting, submitted a letter to staff outlining our proposal. There we go. Okay, thank you. We believe the town has a wonderful opportunity to take advantage of the strategic location of this property. Section 2.2.64 of the proposed official plan directs that the design of entrances along Highway 20 into Font Hill ensure they serve as desirable gateways into the downtown core and the settlement area. 227 is the first property you will see as you enter the town of Pelham from the east, immediately adjacent to the town boundary. It is at the gateway to the town, at the critical junction between the low-intensity highway commercial and agricultural uses in Thorold and the dynamic urban area envisaged for Font Hill. This highly visible location offers a rare opportunity to establish a distinctive gateway that defines the town of Pelham's urban identity while creating a seamless transition from the rural development in Thorold and the more urban development of Font Hill. The low-intensity highway commercial uses immediately east of the town boundary and the subject property was constructed under previous zoning permissions in Thorold. The agricultural lands to the east and on the south side of Highway 20, as you see here, represent the future uses of this area as indicated in provincial legislation and the Thorold official plan. These policies and zoning only provide for agricultural type uses. Similarly, as one drives further east into Thorold, the same situation exists. The vacant lands here are designated and zoned for agricultural uses. It is not anticipated within the present policy regime of the province, region, and the city of Thorold that these lands will be serviced with urban services in the future, creating over the long term the opportunity for the town of Pelham to create a dramatic change as you enter the town, moving from rural and agricultural uses into Font Hill. From a land use and urban design perspective, 227 Highway 20 is ideally positioned to serve as the town of Pelham's gateway, setting the tone of the town's future growth. As previously illustrated in the East Font Hill Secondary Plan demonstration plan, the corner of Rice Road and Highway 20 is identified as the town of Pelham Gateway. It is recommended that this location be formally designated as the town of Pelham Gateway with specific policies guiding its development. 227 Highway 20 and the Rice Road intersection will be the gateway, the introduction of the visitor to the town and the development envisaged to the west, with a mixed-use commercial and employment center on the south side of Highway 20, and the high-quality urban highway commercial uses on the north side of Highway 20, all leading to the downtown commercial and administrative center of Font Hill. Urban design and strategic land uses are key to creating the physical image of the gateway that will capture the imagination of those entering the town. This concept is a very high level depiction of what the potential for this property is. The proposal would be anchored by a high-density mixed-use commercial and residential building positioned close to the Highway 20 road allowance on the town boundary. The eastern facade of the building, with its commercial ground floor, would establish a strong visual presence as the gateway to the town. The pedestrian connection would be obvious. A second high-density mixed-use building would reinforce the presence of this gateway. The interior of the property would provide the opportunity for medium and low-density housing options that would include stacked townhouses, other townhouses, and lower-density residential uses. By establishing a high-quality mixed-use urban environment, the proposed gateway will initiate pedestrian connectivity into the town and reinforce the town's evolving identity. A single official plan designation, the Town of Pelham Gateway, is being proposed. While very appropriate for 227 Highway 20 at the town boundary to define the gateway, we would encourage the town to consider including the entire northeast corner of Rice Road and Highway 20 as a gateway designation. We have offered potential official plan policies to staff and council to consider. These policies need to include a strong emphasis on urban design. The urban image as you enter the town. The proposed mixed-use, high-density residential uses will create the visual image of a town embracing the future. The ground floor commercial uses will positively impact the need for the town to attract employment uses, as well as underscore the pedestrian connection into the town to the west. Together, this vision and these policies will provide the guidance necessary to create a positive visual identity for the Town of Pelham Gateway envisaged. As these policies are presented in a conceptual sense, we would look forward to continue to working with town staff to further refine the proposed policies for the town of Pelham. Where did we go? I guess we've run out of town.
Ran out of pictures.
Oh, we haven't. There we go. So yes, as other people have stated, we've had a very welcoming conversation with town staff, and we have submitted our concept to them and look forward to working with them and refining the policies to really establish the gateway that the town is talking about in its official plan. So I'm happy to respond to any questions, should there be any.
Okay, and thank you. We will be asking questions at the end of all presentations.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for your presentation. To the clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Our next speaker is Don Campbell, who will be attending via Zoom, so we'll just give him a moment to connect. Mr. Campbell, can you hear us okay?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
And Mr. Campbell, you have the floor.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council, for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Before I get into my comments, I just wanted to briefly introduce myself. I've lived in Font Hill for slightly more than 30 years and currently live in the south part of Font Hill. At the end of 2022, I retired, but my retirement ended a 40-year career as a municipal planner. During my career, I was involved in the development of environmental policies for the official plans of Niagara Region, City of Burlington, and Region of Peel. So I have a lot of background in this area. I also developed the Niagara Region Tree Conservation Bylaw that was adopted in the 1990s and was the precursor to the tree bylaw that is now in effect at the region. Now, PATH has already submitted detailed comments on the official plan, which were unfortunately submitted too late to be addressed in this draft. Well, we look forward to them being addressed going forward. Like the other speakers, I would like to express our appreciation for staff meeting with us and working with us. And also would like to commend them on the quality of the new official plan and the significant steps forward it has taken in dealing with environmental issues. Tonight, I'm going to focus on just a few of what I think are larger issues. First of all, tree protection itself. Early in March, Council received a report by staff on tree protection. And at that time, some councillors indicated that they hoped that this issue could be addressed through the new official plan. However, I think that in some respects, this is not realistic. One of the major concerns that PATH raised at the time was with trees being cleared on a site that's intended for development before a planning application is ever made. Presumably with the landowner or proponent envisioning that with the trees being gone, that's one more issue that the developer will not have to deal with. But really, the official plan has a limited ability to deal with something that occurs throughout, outside the planning application process, and therefore has very limited ability to deal with that problem of the site being pre-cleared prior to application. However, a number of municipalities have gone some way towards addressing this in their official plans, and this is something I suggest that Pelham should consider in their plan. Those municipalities have established policy stating that where a portion of a natural feature, such as a woodland or a wetland, is damaged or destroyed, either by human or natural causes, there will be no change to the boundaries or designations of the natural feature. So it will continue to be designated as a natural feature. This means that there will be no financial advantage to be gained by the developer in clearing that land prior to applying, because it still will not be open for development. Some municipalities have gone even farther in their OPs to require the replacement or restoration of the natural feature as a condition of planning approval. So the developer will be faced with the additional cost and work involved in replacing the woodland or wetland. Now, I could expect that some developers would object that this is just not the way that development is done, that you've got to clear the site and create a clean slate. But I find it very interesting to reflect on the area of Font Hill that I live in, south of Pancake Lane, which is an area that was developed in the 1980s. But even though was developed that recently, there are mature trees scattered throughout the area. On my property, we have a black walnut that is 28 inches in diameter. And I ran into Lester Schultz, the developer, a while ago, and he remarked to me that he was very proud of the trees that he had saved in that area when it was developed. So it can be done. It just takes some care and some thoughtfulness. Now, I should add that this policy would only deal with situations where there is a significant natural feature that is designated in the official plan. It would not address protection of trees outside key features. For example, the removal of individual trees in the existing urban area to facilitate intensification or redevelopment, such as in the older parts of Fonthill and Fenwick. And I think you've seen a few projects like that in the last year or so, including the development on Canberra Road that Graham Pett referred to. Another example would be the church site on Pancake Lane at the end of Woodstream, where a substantial number of very large evergreens have been removed just recently. So while I think the official plan policy that I mentioned would be useful, it's still of value and importance to look at a bylaw that would deal with the other concerns with tree cutting, the concerns with tree removal in our existing built-up area, which would certainly have an impact on the character of Fonthill and the character of Fenwick. The second topic that I want to touch on is regarding water resources. It's clear that our woodlands and wetlands are very dependent on water, on having enough water, and on the other hand, not having too much water, and not having water flowing into them that is contaminated by chemicals. So the management of stormwater and water resources very much has an impact on the conservation of our natural heritage. And we're glad to see that there are policies addressing that in the new draft official plan. But I think that they could go further. One area where I think there could be substantial improvement is in the mapping to identify the significant groundwater features in Pelham. They don't seem to be identified in the official plan, although there are policies to protect them. The Fonthill Came has been identified by the region and the Conservation Authority as a groundwater recharge area and a highly vulnerable aquifer. Now, the aquifer, the groundwater, is the underground water that residents and businesses depend on for their water supply from wells. So it's very important in the rural area. In addition, the Came is the headwaters for many of the streams in the Niagara Peninsula. 12 Mile, 15 Mile, and 16 Mile Creek flowing to the north, Coyle, Draper, and others flowing to the south, Singer's Drain flowing to the east. And I think the councilor is aware in particular of the importance of 12 Mile Creek as the only cold water stream in Niagara. And it's very important that we protect the sources for that cold water stream so it continues to be a cold water stream. As I've implied, it's very important that the plan give careful attention to how stormwater management is handled in new development and how it can affect natural areas and natural vegetation more generally. Stormwater management is most concerned with getting stormwater off the land in urban areas and getting it away. But where will that stormwater go? And in what volumes? And what is the quality of that stormwater? Does it contain oil and gasoline residues and pesticides and so on that could be harmful to the natural life in the woodlands and wetlands? It's very important that stormwater be managed in such a way that it doesn't damage the natural areas that are to be protected, that it doesn't cause flooding or drought that will kill the plants in those natural areas, or that it doesn't cause flooding or erosion, which will cause problems at downstream, or that it doesn't cause pollution. Third area I'd like to discuss is buffers and settlement areas. The draft official plan indicates that there are to be mandatory buffers around natural features within settlement areas. These are zones that are to be naturally vegetated to protect natural areas from the impacts of adjacent development. I'm concerned that while the OP sets mandatory minimum buffer widths outside settlement areas, inside settlement areas, there are no minimums. The buffer widths are to be determined through an environmental impact study or a hydrologic evaluation when an application is submitted, i.e., they're to be determined through the study paid for and submitted by the applicant. I fear that this will result in buffers often being reduced. Furthermore, under the draft OP, expansions to existing buildings and structures and conversions of existing uses may be permitted in the buffers if it's been demonstrated, again through an environmental impact study, that there will be no negative impact and the buffers will continue to provide their intended ecological function. I think that these policies need to be strengthened and tightened up. Now, specifically with respect to agricultural structures and buildings, the draft plan indicates with respect to significant woodlands that the official plan policies restricting development in woodlands and requiring buffers really won't apply to agricultural buildings. This doesn't seem to be consistent with the Greenbelt plan, which indicates that a 30-meter vegetation protection zone or a buffer is to be required for new agricultural buildings. And I think this is significant in Pelham because I can think of at least one instance where a greenhouse operation is located right next to a wetland. Finally, I would like to speak to trails and the trails policies. The schedules in the existing plan show the Steve Bauer Trail System and proposed trails. And I think that it would be wise in the new plan to show existing and proposed trails as well, and to require that development applications incorporate the proposed trails. In other words, that subdivisions are designed so that the proposed trails are built into the plans. And finally, just a suggestion, Pelham, particularly in the rural area, has quite a number of hydro transmission corridors and pipeline corridors crossing it. Other municipalities, including in Niagara, have taken advantage of those to develop trails in partnership with the utility organizations. And it would suggest it would be worthwhile for Pelham to consider that. It could be quite an asset for the town. That's the conclusion of my presentation, and I thank you again very much for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Campbell, for joining us tonight. And your expertise is very much appreciated, and as are your comments. I turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So that concludes our pre-registered speakers. If there's anyone in the gallery who wishes to make a verbal comment, I would ask that you please make your way to the center podium, and you can attend to the microphone, state your name for the record before proceeding. So now would be your chance.
Thank you. Anyone in attendance that isn't a pre-registered speaker but would like to, but has comments to make on the official plan? Not seeing anyone.
Okay.
Madame?
I will close and then we'll take a recess.
Yep. I guess we should, well, I think we're supposed to do that 3 times.
I will, so seeing that there's no one in the gallery who would like to make any further comments, I will check the clerks at pelham.ca email address to see if we've received any emails before closing the public portion.
Okay, thank you. And again, if there is anyone in the public gallery, change your mind and you want to come up and talk, now is indeed the appropriate time.
And Mr. Mayor, I can confirm that it is 7:07 p.m. and we have received no emails. Therefore, you may close the public portion of the meeting and move to a brief recess.
Okay, thank you. So seeing that there is no one making the way to the microphone, we will close the public section of the meeting. And telling you the honest truth, we are going to have a 5-minute biological break, and then we will come back and have committee comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I have a pressing engagement. I think I'm going to bail out. Okay? Just let you know, I was going to grab Mark before he left.
Okay, counselors, please. Yeah, a 1-minute warning.
We're gonna get rid of him, Steve.
Yeah.
You have your power already.
Yeah, there we go, indeed. May the 1st, May the 1st.
Yeah,
Okay, we're ready to go?
when you're ready.
Okay.
just- yep.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we will go back to this meeting. I see we have lost one counselor. He had a previous engagement, Councilor Eckert. We still have quorum, so we will continue with the meeting. And now is the committee input. So I will open it up to anyone on the committee, i.e. council. Any questions? I will like to, if I can just before, like to again thank everyone who came in tonight and gave us your opinions, your thoughts on the official plan. It is indeed quite a document. It was, as a council, it's very heartening to hear that the majority of people who had dealings with our planning department have nothing but good things to say about how they were treated, and that their thoughts and considerations were indeed dealt with. So I really appreciate that, and we thank the council of the planning department for that, for the work that's gone in here. I guess, Lindsay, you said 2021, I believe, is how long you've been on it. So, and another great thing that as a council that, again, I don't want to bang on our door too much, but the fact that we have had a lot of public meetings to this, and I've had a lot of people from the residents, from public, saying that they were happy with the amount of meetings that we've had. We've been very open with things. They could always come in. The planning department's door is wide open. I've had lots of opportunities to come in and discuss this document, and I think everybody's looking forward to May 7th when we get the final document back, and we will hopefully pass it then, if all is well. So committee members, Councilor Nesnick, I believe you have comments.
Yes, good evening, and once again, thank you to the audience for coming to listen and just show your care and commitment to good things happening in Pelham. Also, just I'd like to echo Mayor Junkin's thoughts on the good work that the planning department has been working on and has completed. So I don't have a lot of questions. I just have really some comments with regards to the way the new layout of it. It seems to be very easily to read and to quickly find any of your high interest topics. I have just 4 points, and one of them is basically to reiterate that you heard us. So you heard us in terms of saying with regards to increasing the number of parklands we have. So thank you. I think that's a nice new addition to the plan. You also heard the importance of how this council, or myself included, feel with regards to protecting the environmental aspects and uniqueness of our town, both in the vegetation, the water safety and control, and as well as our soils. And thirdly is the focus and the priority you've placed on maintaining our agricultural lands. If we continue to spread outward into those agricultural lands, like some of our communities next to us or within the region are doing, we will soon no longer have any farmland to prize those wonderful cherries and peaches and grapes and corn and produce that we produce here in southern Ontario. So kudos to that. In other words, that does mean that we have to increase the density within our urban boundary, which is a little bit of a sticky point as well. So hopefully we can do that with a nice balancing act going forward. And fourth, it sounds as though you are in the plan, and I'll grant it, I didn't read word for word, but I think somewhere in there you are talking about when you're building new communities and you're making connections between and within communities so that we can connect easily both via trail, simple roadways, and walking paths between and within communities. So that was exciting to see, as well as that focus on looking at ways we can create housing that people can age in place. So I think we're off to a great start with that, and we're looking forward to a few new big projects that are coming down the road. And I think any of the personal examples that folks have brought forward today, I think you were furiously taking notes, Dr. Dusling, so that's wonderful. But I'm confident that the reality of some of the issues that were brought to light today can supersede or be worked around through the plan. And I don't think that these plans tie our hands so tightly that we can't give and take of what's reasonable and what's should happen, which makes common sense in some of these instances that you brought forward today. So once again, thank you for all your comments. I learned a lot today, actually, so it was very worthwhile me coming out tonight. And as I said, I don't really have any questions moving forward. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Nesnick, for those comments. Turn to other committee members. Councilor Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for all the residents and your presentation that you gave, and all those online and all the written comments we received. We truly appreciate the effort that you put in coming out, and you have to realize that we as council understand, because we live in town, we know your concerns, and we're all readily available by phone or email. We're so pleased that our staff has been recognized as doing an admirable job responding to your comments. And I'm sure they have received the information you've presented tonight, and also the written comments they've received in the past. And I can assure you that they will be updating us as council with your comments. And, they're part of our team, what I call Team Pelham. They were very receptive, and we're all proud of all the work they've done. One of the things that gets us quite excited is the fact that we've got a rural but a commercial area, and we've got trails and compatibility that we all enjoy walking, riding, or participating in. There's nothing better for me than to be out in nature and having that availability. The fact that we have addressed trees, and we're going to be spending more time doing the and or in the policies, the stormwater management, low impact development, I think, and all the specific details we've heard tonight from individuals. We've heard them, and we'll be addressing them, and we'll work together and provide a great official plan. And thank you again for coming out tonight. Really appreciate your attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilor with any comments? Councilor Kerr.
Yes, it's interesting to, the purpose of an official plan is to be a bit of a projector. In other words, you have to forecast into the future a significant period of time. Personally, looking at since 2012, how much has changed. And I kind of look at the thing in a number of ways that what used to take 10 years to happen suddenly changed to happen in a year, and what used to happen in a year happens in a month, and what happened in a month happens in a day. The speed of the transition is what catches everyone, and we're often stuck with the memories of our youth, happier times, and other things. And unfortunately, the world is going to go forward. We don't stop progress, but we do want to try and find a way within the official plan that we can adequately address the needs of the people now, but also into the future. And I was quite pleased to hear a significant portion of the discussion surrounded the environmental side. I'm an Aggie from the University of Guelph, master's degree in environmental biology, did my PhD as well, and worked in the industry for now 45 years. I probably cut down more trees, but planted more trees than anybody on a piece of property. that's not very big. But part of it is also looking at the management and understanding that, similar to everything, plants have, and sometimes we forget that. Nothing lives forever, though there may be weeds in certain spots in certain parts of agriculture that we declare live forever regardless of what we try and do. But we are stewards of the land and recognize that there is a beginning and an end for every plant, every person. By trying to look at this and not negatively impact, and I think that's the purpose of the draft official plan, is to not negatively impact people, but give them second thought and give them reasons and rationale in an overarching fashion. It's not a dictation of thou shalt specifically do in this particular instance. These are the guidelines in which we have to follow. Specifics come out in the bylaws, at least that's my feeling. That's when we get down to the nuts and bolts of regulations and things like that. But this what Pam and Lindsay and others have done, I think they're drafting a document that's about 3 times the length of my dissertation in trying to write and put everything together and get it all put together properly. And I appreciate it, and I admire them for it. They are taking copious quantities of notes. They'll distill it down. They're going to try. And the challenge for all of us is to come up with what we call the best fit. Rarely will you get 100% unanimity out of everybody. There's always someplace, some person that will disagree with what was decided. But we have to think about how we come to those conclusions and do the best we can. And I think we are doing that, and it's appreciated. Everyone that spoke tonight had very site-specific things that they were talking about, which was important, and identifying some weaknesses that we have to try and find a way to mitigate that, and I think that's important. Similarly, there were the overarching ones, and the last speaker had brought up about water quality, environmental quality. However, in some cases, if you're like I am and have my brother across the road with a whole pile of Phragmites that have suddenly invasively gone through the area, you start to wonder about some things that have happened. But we learn from it and we go forward. So my summarization, and rather than talk on and on, is just to say thank you for your comments. They're noted. I've made notes, so have the other councilors that are here. We're going to be listening to make sure that what's brought to us has taken that into account. And I think that that's what our Director of Planning and the policy planner is going to do for us. And we do the best with that. As I said, maybe at the very end, people won't be 100% in agreement, but we're going to try our best. And nothing's written in stone. That's why official plans get updated all the time. And people apply for changes to official plans. We're just trying to get this thing done to the best we can so we can get all our zoning bylaws and that in place. And so that's my comments to the people that are sitting in the crowd and out listening out there. This is not truly an end point. This is a true starting point for us to go forward with. And it's time that we get away from 2012. I'd like to know, and I was trying to wonder, when was the previous official plan done for the town of Pelham? And I bet you it was almost 25 years before that. Yeah, 87. So that just tells you right off the bat, 25 years it took between official plans. We're now down to 13 years, so I think we're doing not too bad. We've cut the time in half, but that's the whole idea. It's a fluid document that occurs over time. So I appreciate your coming to the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other? Okay, Councillor Olson, you're last but not least. Go ahead,
Thank you,
sir.
Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, my comment is that you know, the official plan has to follow the guidelines of the legislation and the policy of the province, but it's fundamentally still a document that's created by the community. This is a great example of the consultation that went into this. There are things that have emerged along the way, and I think that I could make a list of a couple of them. I could mention the fact that we have to probably have another look at parking, perhaps, and how we deal with parking. I'm not saying that we should change the official plan, but there must be a way of making adaptations to allow for parking specifically for second dwelling units. If there's some way we can get a way of accommodating second dwelling units, and I'm thinking perhaps a minor variance through the committee of adjustment might be the way, and I'm just suggesting that without knowing what I'm talking about really until I see somebody else talk about it. The other one was mapping. And looking at the advances in mapping, I think there's an emerging opportunity here to do a job with AI and all these other things to map the property so that we know where pre-existing dwellings were and that type of thing, so that we get into a situation where we don't make a mistake and say that this can't be built on, but there's already an existing building there. That type of thing I'm looking for, something of that nature. And I know that transit is going to be an upcoming issue, and I'm kind of thinking that perhaps we should be looking at establishing where the transit nodes will be, the best transit nodes would be, and I'm thinking perhaps that, for example, Lookout Community perhaps would be a place for that. And I know that to go back to mapping again, I hate to be jumping around here, but I know that our Indigenous friends are mapping their trails, and I believe that now there's evidence of sites around, and perhaps they should be included in some way as not as something restrictive, but something for information purposes and for something for heritage purposes. Because I think you'll find that you'll probably find that that's another road to reconciliation. And the final road to reconciliation for all people is going to be water, around water. And I think that clean water is a cause that we can all embrace, where everybody should be embracing that. So I think that's something that we should be looking at, because we live in such a powerful geography here with the flow of water in the 12-mile creek. This is something that should be very high, and I know we got attention in the official plan, and I think this is something of great importance. That's all I have to say, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments, Councillor. I guess if I can, as mayor, I get to wrap it up. I would like to just commend the planning department. The edits from across the lake, they have indeed quieted down somewhat in the last year or two, but anyone who is at all on a council, whether at this or at the region, my goodness, between 20 and 23, I don't know how many different, it seemed like every 6 months we had another edit come across from the lake. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. We're changing this, and to put it together an official plan, and maybe, and like I say, every year, okay, what do we have to go back because of this edit? And it never ceases to amaze me how many people think that this council has so much authority when it comes to planning. I've talked to so many residents, and they don't understand that most of our rules and regulations do indeed come from the province. And when you realize that, 29,000 people in Pelham by 2051. That isn't our thinking. That's a figure that was given to us by the province, and Pelham's not the only one. Go to any other municipality in southern Ontario, and they dictate how many people you have got to plan for. So and that ties our hands in that way. In another way, as Councilor Nesnick said, we have to do infilling. We can't continue the urban sprawl. It's just back in the 70s and 80s, my goodness, 300, even today, we're still losing around 350 acres a day of land in Ontario. So it's still continuing, but the infilling is indeed a necessary step. And unfortunately, if you infill in a subdivision that's already 20 or 30 years old, that does get, that's when you get the most feedback. Again, you have to weigh weigh all the pros and cons, and usually the infilling. You're making more use of your infrastructure. It's way to go. That's all there is to it. Anyway, excellent. Again, thank you again to the planning department. That is indeed quite a document, 600 pages. Great suggestions, I thought, from the community today. And I know that the planning department will have many consultations between themselves to include as many as they can. Some of them are just simple word changes, and word changes mean a lot also. Obviously, they missed them going forward. But other than that, and again, thanks to the residents for coming out tonight and for making your suggestions, either in person or on Zoom. Everything, no decisions were made tonight. We're a little ways away from that, but at the same time, we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So I turn to the clerk to any other bookkeeping.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if there are no other further committee comments, that brings us to presentation of resolutions. I have a resolution put forth by Councillor Olson that committee receive report 2025-00092 information report, statutory public meeting, Town of Pelham new official plan, and that committee directs planning staff to prepare the recommendation report on the Town of Pelham official plan for council's consideration.
Thank you. Any further comments on this resolution? Not seeing any, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Resolution carries.
And thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a motion put forth by Councillor Kerr that committee receive the written correspondence as listed on the agenda, and that committee receive the verbal presentations made by the public.
Thank you. Any other comments on this motion? Not seeing any. I call the question. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Motion carries.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings you to adjournment. I have a motion brought forth by Councillor Niznik that this special committee of the whole public meeting under the Planning Act be adjourned.
Okay, thank you. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? See none opposed.